from the gender-based violence conversation there, we now train our focus to investment and savings. That is what you're set to converse in the next 40 minutes. I'm holding court with Cynthia Wamboi to my extreme left, who is marketing and community lead at KOA. Right next to her is Delila Kidanu, who is the COO KOA. Welcome to the program, ladies.
Thank you.
Hey, it is in the unison in thank you. Like, thank you. Right, let me start with you, Delila. Just talk to us about the relationship between investment and savings. How similar or how different are they?
Yeah, so savings definitely is something when you're putting your money away and trying to put it away for an emergency or a future kind of event. And when you're looking at saving, you also need to incorporate some type of investment into that. So at KOA, we kind of blend the two. So making sure that you're able to save and have some type of interest on that savings, so you're not losing the value of your savings.
So there's actually a bit of a difference.
Yes, for sure.
Between what savings is and what investment is. And we'll come to delve deeper momentarily as we head on with these conversations. But Cynthia, you are the marketing and community lead at KOA. What exactly do you do? What does your role entail? Because this is more of like just trying to understand what we can do, even just as Kenyans, to increase our savings.
Yeah. So at KOA, basically what I do is I try to sell the products and show people the value of saving and investing their money. So I do that by teaching people about finances through the articles we write and the webinars that we also do for our customers. Yes.
I like that you do teaching. So you can really teach us how we can increase an uptake on savings and investment.
Yes.
But again, when you talk about savings, Delila, and investment, just where do we start from? Because you realize there's a lot of information. People really understand that it's important to save, but the level or the percentage at which we know we should save does not equalize to actually people saving and investing. Yes,
it's true. I think something we've seen is firstly on the education side, which is briefly what Cynthia mentioned. So there's a lack of information on how do we save, how do we know how much we should save, where can we save. So I think when you're looking at savings in the first place, you need to have a goal, right? So we need to...
That's a starting point.
That's the starting point.
You just don't decide, you know, I'm earning 10,000, for instance, I'll be saving 2,000. You just don't start from that.
No, because then you don't have something to work towards, right? So at least that's our philosophy. So if you have, for example, a goal, so some people might have an emergency as a goal, so any future health emergency or something that could come up, they save for that. If you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a motorbike, all of those are goals and they're attainable and you can work towards them. In having that goal, you're also motivated to keep saving and to make sure that you're putting money away every month instead of doing something else with it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Do you think that is one of the things that we miss oftentimes, having that particular goal? You do a lot of teaching through the webinars, as you've said, and articles, and maybe you can just tell us perhaps also what you've drawn. Is it one of the things that we miss, so that then we just feel like we hear a lot of conversations on savings? I need to save for my betterment.
Yeah.
Do we miss the goal aspect?
Yeah, we do. Because as she's mentioned, having a goal makes you very intentional with your saving. Otherwise, then you're just doing it to do it. And in a situation like that, you find people pinch money out of their savings because you don't have an actual intention for that goal that, or you know. So what we've seen is people just save money. They just put it so that at the back of their minds, they know they have money somewhere. But from the stories they tell you that, oh, something came up, I had to pinch. But if you have an intentional goal towards your saving, you'll know that this is for my car and I cannot pinch it so that I can go out with my friends, or unless it's an emergency, like a dying emergency, but like, so intentions is important.
You want to chime on that?
Yes, I think it's also about like the behavior. So when we first started like looking into the space, we're looking at how do people spend their money and why do they spend it so impulsively, and we realized
impulsive is the word.
And the reason behind that is because you get this instant gratification, you know. It's like, okay, I bought this new phone or I bought this nice meal, I'm so happy, I'm overjoyed, right? It's very instant. Whereas saving, it's a little bit more delayed and you have to get comfortable with saying, okay, I'm going to forego today's enjoyment but next year or like later in the year, I'm going to have double or triple because I'll be able to kind of invest in what I want to do or what I want to have. So it's really like psychological as well when you're looking at how you like structure and start to save for your like future.
But they just said life is for the living, you know.
But how will you live when you don't have money?
Oh yeah.
How will you live when you're overspending?
Yeah. And also that time when you really can't actively work, for instance.
Yes.
You're saving towards pension, for example. But also, talk to me about like the steps of even just coming up with a goal, because I mean you've just given very good examples. There's so many things that one would want to do. I'd want to buy a house, I'd want to buy a car, I'd want to save for pension, I'd want to so many things. So then what is the best strategy? So then you have a clear goal. This tied down with the aspect of I wouldn't like want to save for a car, and then I see some good house and I realize, wait, I'd want to actually start with the house before the car. Or I don't see like some nice set of clothes and I realize maybe we can actually do with the clothes, then we can do the car later. How do you do that?
I think it starts from where you are in life.
Okay.
What situation you're in life, what you need, and what's achievable. So, for example, a person who's like in their entry-level career, maybe they live at home, and their biggest goal is, or like at the back of their minds, they know they need to move out of home. So you start from there, like what you think you need in the moment, where you are, and what's achievable for you. So that's what you look at. A person who has kids and you live in an apartment and you're trying to move them to, maybe you feel like they need space to play. So I think you start from where you are, you look at your situation, what will fit for your financial habit and your financial future. Then you create a goal from there.
I hear you.
Yes.
I want to come to you, Delila, on budgeting, but before I get to do that, let me just pick your brain on this particular one. Now that you've talked about starting from where you are,
Yes.
I have had,
Yes.
perhaps you can elucidate and give a clear guide because you're in the market.
Okay.
But there's this notion that young people really just want to sort of like focus on want to buy land, build house. There are some quarters that would say, first of all, look at how you can grow yourself even career-wise, build on that before you actually get into these other things.
Yes.
But then one would assume and one would say, I'm thinking towards the future, much as I could be young. How do you draw the line and just how do you demarcate so that then you don't do this at the expense of something else?
Well, same thing still comes back to where you are. I mean, if you're a person who...
I mean, I could be where I am, could be I'm young.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of wanting to buy land and construct and build, but then like I said, some quarters are saying, you know, you're still too young for that. So how do you do
I think
that?
with that you look at what the market is saying,
All right,
because when it comes
all right,
to investments and savings, you just do not blindly go and do things. You do your research, you do your due diligence, look at what the market is saying. In the next 5 years, will this piece of land appreciate? Then yes, you can pause what you're doing and concentrate on buying that piece of land and maybe planting something. The trees that you need in the next 6 years will give you mad money, you know. So I think you look at what the market is saying, you look at yourself, you look at what you want, then go ahead and enjoy and procure.
Regardless of the conversation, still starts from inward.
It starts
and
from
what you
it's all
seek
inward,
to
yes.
benefit.
Yeah.
I think also on that it's about what you can do within your means. So for example, if you have a salary of like 50K or 100K and you look at a piece of land and you figure out a mortgage or a way that you can buy this land on a loan, and you can repay that loan comfortably while living your life on your current salary.
Regardless of age.
Regardless of age. Why should age play a role, right?
I don't even know.
No.
I'm telling you, this like
No
daytime
way.
you meet people and age is really you're too
No.
young, and you're thinking, okay, so if you're too young for this, why do you want to do it when you're old?
No,
Yeah.
imagine that you could start when you're like 23, 24. By the
What's the
time
how?
you're 50, you're finished paying your loans, you own everything, you know, you're in a much better place. I think what happens is because financial literacy, we're not really taught when we're in school. So if you go to primary school, secondary school, even by university, I've never sat down and had a class where someone walked me through, this is how you get a mortgage, this is how you can plan for it, this is how you can structure your finances. But if we had that, I think more young people would actually see the benefit of getting into a mortgage or getting into, you know, some type of loan for a longer term, because now your salary will only increase, right? When you go from your first job to your second job to your third job, if you can make a mortgage work with your first salary, imagine your second salary, your third salary, you know, you're only going to improve. So I think starting young is actually much better.
And there's nothing wrong with starting young. I
There's
mean,
nothing.
if
No.
you have it, go for it.
The earlier the
100%.
better.
Why would you want to wait until you're 30, 40 when you have the capacity, for instance?
Yeah,
at
100%.
20-something?
Yeah.
Mistake. Anyway, but there's something else. This has just sort of like left my mind. Yeah, the budgeting and investing and saving. Which one is better then?
Well,
Should I jump in? Or?
You see, investments
Yes.
are more of asset buying, right?
Okay.
And savings are more of putting your money in a product like a bank or like core, right? So it depends with the money you have. That's one. It controls a lot of where to put your money. Like, if you have a lot of money and we're looking at the future, long-term kind of thing, we're talking about an investment, an asset, mortgage.
So not saving per
Yeah.
se at that point.
And then another thing is you can save for an investment. Like, you can save your money, let it grow on core, then get an investment, buy an asset. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
but
does,
yeah,
it does, it does.
Yeah.
But I think to a certain extent there are different ways. Like, so
Yeah.
savings is, okay, you're putting your money away and perhaps you're saving in a bank, perhaps you're saving in a chama or a sacco, but ultimately your savings, you always want your savings to earn interest, right? Otherwise there's no point in putting your money somewhere when you have a high inflation rate and every day you're losing value on your savings. So savings should most likely always be coupled with some type of investment. That's why you'll see people going to asset managers. That's why you'll see people going to SACCOs, because ultimately you're saving, but the investment vehicle's in the background. So for example, if you come onto COA, you set up your savings goal, you deposit your funds there, your money is being invested, and you as a saver, you're also getting interest back. So at least you can, your money will not depreciate as much every day or every month.
I hear you. So then I'd want to get your account on this one, since you largely deal with an entity that's more into savings, and this is something that our president has constantly talked about. In fact, he's just trying to look for ways in which we can move from external borrowing and see how we can borrow internally to manage our own future projects. And to this effect, he also talked about increase of NSSF, a bit of increase of NHI for those that earn 100,000 and above. Just the other day when Hustler Fund was being launched, 5% of what you borrow in this personal product product that was launched, 5% of it goes to savings. And in fact, that out of that 5% which goes into savings, 70% of that 5% goes into long-term savings. 30 goes into short-term savings. So when you look at some of these projects being proffered by the government, and also looking at entities such as you, which focus largely on savings, and I mean, in a long-term projection, do you actually think as a country we can achieve that savings that he's constantly talked about? Because again, he also mentioned that in the East African bloc, we are doing so badly when it comes to savings. Let me start with you on that one.
For sure. I definitely think there's a large capacity for savings in Kenya. I think we've seen that people are actively saving, right? But it's not it's not a very formalized type of saving.
So we're saving informally?
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's many chamas. I think every individual you meet is maybe in like 2-3 chamas saving for something, right? But that doesn't come into the more formal sector. And I think that's now where the gap between financial literacy and also understanding how best to invest that money, because we are pooling a lot of money into groups, but we're not investing that, or we're not putting it into instruments that'll provide us interest. So I really like the initiative. I think trying to get savings on the radar for every household is very important, especially coming out of COVID and kind of the economy being a bit shaky. It's very important to have those savings. But I think that the way that we get people to save, we need to look at different types of incentives and different ways to encourage people to save, but also managing that with the economy and food prices and everything going up. We need to try and find a balance of how much people can actually save and incentivize that. And I really like the incentive that they're putting in place to match savings. I don't know if they've officially launched that, but I think that would be a fantastic way.
So that then you save like 50, they match that.
Exactly.
50, and or in the long term you actually get to benefit from that. And I'll get your account on the same, but you talked about incentives, and this is just one product that you've also touched on, which is featuring the Hustlers Fund. So again, even moving forward for bigger perhaps financial lenders or institutions like maybe the banks or even SACCOs, is this one of those directions that perhaps we can take? Because I know at COA you do the same. There's that incentive. Is this a direction that you should take so that then one also sees the benefit and need of I'm saving because actually it's important?
Yes, definitely. I think there's different types of like financial profiles, right? There's the person who knows exactly what they want in 10 years and they're going to be focused on that
regardless
and drill down.
of whether there's an incentive or
Yeah,
not.
regardless, right? But then you have people who need to be incentivized, people who need to be like, you know, this is for your betterment. So I think that financial products need to work for people. People don't need to work for financial products, right? So at COA, yes, we have our financial application, so you can, you know, you can save, you can structure your savings, but we've also realized that incentivizing people to save, interest is not enough, right? There needs to be, they need to see the future of why they're saving. They need to understand what they'll gain by doing it. So we recently launched a kind of more gamified product. So it's called Save to Win. So every week or every day you can save your funds and you get into a draw. So it's more like a game. And we incentivize you every week. So you have the opportunity to win like a grand prize at the end of the week, which, yeah, we've had a couple of winners now and I think they're enjoying it.
They're loving it.
Yeah.
I mean, in the long term, Cynthia, is this something we need to be looking into so that we can uptake and increase our savings as a country? It's just, I mean, it's just so much to talk about it and give the figures and statistics, but how do we bridge the gap between talking about it and actually implementing it?
I think the only gap that's in Kenya right now is knowledge. It's literacy, because
we don't have the information.
Yeah, people don't have the information, and without the information, people will not see the value of, even if we incentivize your savings and we tell you this, save to win, save money to win money, there's core, organize your goals. If you do not know why it's important for you and your future, people will not take part in this. So once we've hacked financial literacy, once they've started, people have started being taught in schools, in unis, that you know what, when you get out there, you can take a good loan that's going to help you, or you can save money starting from now with the little that your parents are giving you, and every day put in some money and save, you know. Once people are taught and understand the value of why we should save money, trust me, as a country we'll hack it. We'll become the East African country that they all want to be.
Yeah. You don't have to rely on money
loans,
from outside. We can do our own project.
Exactly.
But allow me to be the devil's advocate on this one, Cynthia. And to some extent, maybe I would agree with when you say there's no proper financial literacy, just alluding what Delila said, Delina said, it's Delila, yeah, sorry, said earlier.
Yeah.
But looking at what is currently in the market, haven't we had enough talks of why you should save so that then this informs the kind of information you would have as an individual, for us to say there's no proper knowledge or information on financial literacy?
I don't think so. Because then if people have been talked to enough about finances, we would see it from our end.
Do you think that's not that we just see it, or there's just a lot that we are reeling with and going through that you don't see?
The need to save.
Yes, I know I need to save. Okay. I have been taught, maybe not in school, but to some extent life has taught me, or you, the way you are here, you have taught me, I've read somewhere. So I even understand the importance of it.
I think in situations like those, you know, it also starts from where you come from, how your parents have raised you, how you've seen their culture.
Has a play on this.
A lot. If you've seen your parents being spendthrifts and you've seen them struggling with money, or let me give an example.
Yes.
A person who's seen their parents struggle with finances and being in situations where she or he wouldn't want to be right now, a person like that is very cautious with their money. A person like that will not overspend. A person like that will want a better future and will be very intentional. But a person who has a silver platter and, you know, has seen how good life can be, I mean, they know they can always go back home. Or so I feel like it goes back to how are we raised, how have you seen money being spent or transacted at home. At the end of the day, money is psychological. So what you've seen is what you grow into, and that's why, in as much as I understand we are going through so much as a country and inflation and all that, but yeah, it goes back to how have you seen money being spent
growing up.
Yeah, growing up.
And you know, just saying money psychological, you sort of orient my next question, and I want to pose it to you, Delila. So then, what does personality, or how does personalities play when it comes to even investing or saving altogether?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really understanding your type of money personality. Okay. So are you a spender? Are you impulsive? Are you cautious? Do you save a lot? Because you can do different things to help yourself in that way. So for example, if you're more of an impulsive spender, then you maybe don't keep so much M-Pesa available or create a barrier, you know. I remember when I first got M-Pesa, it was just too easy for me, and I just would spend, and then I realized that I need a block. So I keep very little on my M-Pesa, and if I need to make a purchase,
because you've understood your personality.
I understand, yeah. I had to go to my bank, then I have to initiate with like a movement, and then it takes time, and then by then, you know, I've thought about the purchase. I'm not really going to make it anymore.
And the process just drains you already.
Yeah, just like, do I really want this? So I think you also need to understand yourself a little bit and also understand what you want. And sometimes, also alluding to the question to Cynthia, sometimes your like market, your area also plays a role. So even if you have a personality where you're, you know, very stringent and you have a goal, you know what you're doing, it might be that, you know, things cost a lot, or you know, now the things that you were able to afford you can't afford anymore, but you can't really make a difference because you've committed. So in some instances your personality does play a role to get you to that point of discipline and create your kind of money flow, what you're doing every month with your income or week, depending where you work or how you get your income. But there are also external factors that play a role that you need to kind of take into account.
I hear you.
Yeah, and also one thing that people need to understand is you need to be honest with yourself. Because one thing people they're not honest. There's that perception they want to have about who they are when it comes to how they spend their money, and there's the real one of who they actually are. So sit down and be honest with yourself. How are you with your money? Leave alone that thing that you keep thinking at the back of your mind, that's me in the future. Right now, how are you? Are you that big spender? You know, are you cautious? If you're cautious, okay, how can I better myself, even grow my money even more, you know? So honesty with where you are and who you are with your finances also will play a big role. Yes.
I hear you. Just like reminds me, you know, the first 2 days after this particular fund was launched, you would listen to stories done by various journalists where Kenyans would say, I just wanted to take that 500, 600 bob to just actually ascertain if it works, for one, and then two, I didn't even have a plan with it. Just want to buy something, to just actually feel I bought something. So you realize you were taking money, but with zero plan in it. And I want to imagine this actually extrapolates even to people borrowing big amounts of money, huge sums. You know, just want to borrow with no clear plan and guide. And sometimes because maybe you don't have a goal, so then one would want to imagine, yes, goal is important, but which other factors inform your saving or your investment, so that when you borrow money, whether it's from digital lender or the banks, whichever financial institution, it actually heads over to its intended purpose. Let me get your brain on that one.
I think another factor that plays a big role with how you interact with money, besides you having
only just a goal,
I feel like once you've started from a goal, the other factors will come into play. Because once you have your goal with how you want, for example, to get that hustler fund, right? You get the hustler fund and you sit down, and if you don't have a plan, you'll go and spend it. Like as we've heard on the radio, the lady was saying, like, you get the hustler fund, you did not have a plan, you go and watch football, you bet all of it, right? So it starts from you planning yourself. What do you want with your money in the future? Where do you see yourself? You don't even have to look as far as 5 years. Let's say in 2 years, what do you want? So you have to, that's like one of the biggest factors, your future plan, your future intention. If you do not have that in mind, then most of the times you'll find your finances will scatter because you're just doing to do.
Just doing to do.
Yeah, and maybe to add there, I think also when we talk about like the future and planning, it doesn't always have to be big. I think that sometimes we also a lot of what we hear at COA is that, like, oh, I actually don't have enough to save. And when we kind of drill deeper, we're like, what is enough? You know, it's like, oh, I don't have thousands. But like actually savings, you start from very small, right? Like savings is savings. Anything you can put away is more that you would have tomorrow than you would otherwise. So I think like starting with a plan just gives you that vision of where you're going. So whether it's like a bigger purchase, like you want to take a mortgage, or you want to be able to, you know, buy like a stove or something for your house, they both have merit, and you can start small. You can start with 100 shillings a week if that's what you have. You can start with 50 shillings a day if that's what you have. But the thing is about making momentum towards putting money away. And like you imagine if like 1 million people put like a shilling a day, you know, that it adds up. So I think like you just need to look at like the bigger picture and start to, you know, just start somewhere. And that 10 shillings or 50 shillings you're putting today, it'll continue to grow. And eventually you'll be able to put more and more, but just be like starting a bit small with that vision in mind, I think is very important.
I hear you. And I would want us to exit this space without talking about budgeting.
Yeah.
Budgeting is very key because there's so much to talk about. The savings, investing and spending, but you already have the money, whether you borrowed from whichever form or it is money that you've earned at the end of the month. How do you start to budget? What do you start with? And this take cognizant of the fact that we are just saying right now that where we are as a country, the cost of living is no one to just play around with. So how do you start budgeting? So then you ensure everything goes to its intended purpose, and you also keep some that you would save, which will ultimately inform how you invest in the future.
Yeah. I think budgeting is very important. I must say that it's a tough process, but if you do it and you do it right, like you get a lot of clarity. And it's also, I think as Cynthia said, it's like one of the best ways to be completely honest with yourself, because the numbers won't lie. So I think the first thing is just to get everything on the table, right? So you just say, okay, in November, let me pull out everything that I've spent. So let's see my M-Pesa receipts, let's see my bank receipts, and let's just list them all out and see how much was spent and what went where. Because that's when you'll now have a better picture of how much you're spending in which category, and try to put them into buckets now. There's a saying that always goes like, pay yourself first, and that's, you know, pay your savings first, right? So once you understand how much you need for the next month, you know how much is coming in, the first thing you do is take that lump sum and put it away. Now you just pretend like...
Wait a minute, let me just understand this. What you're putting away is what you're putting for savings?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And once you do that, then you have the rest to play with, right? And that's now to cover your bills, to have your enjoyment.
What percentage are we talking about here?
So it really differs. It differs on like how much you earn. It differs where you live. On average, they say about 20 to 30% should go into savings per month.
Of your total
your total income per month. But again, that might not be sustainable for you. It might be more, it might be less. But you'll only find that out once you look at your budget and see what is going where.
How easy is it to stay consistent on that budgeting? Taking on the account, we just talked about inflation, you know, quickly going up sometimes. At times things are just stagnant. At times things are going down. At times you just really can't even make sense of what is happening. So how do you stay consistent on that budget?
I think what kind of makes you stay consistent with your budget is, before you created that budget, you were honest with yourself. You knew what you wanted, and you had a goal for you having a budget, right? So once that is clear, trust me, you will not have a... Trust me.
Sure?
I know things come up, mid-month things happen. Maybe if you have a car, you got an accident, or you had to go for servicing, stuff happens. But a person who is clear, who is intentional, who is financially literate, and who knows what they want with their money, once you've created that budget and you are honest with yourself, you will be consistent, because you'll start seeing the fruits of your savings, your budgeting. And once you, trust me, once you get into that momentum, you don't want to ruin it, because it's a process. And eventually you want to become a champion of finances. So I think it starts from yourself, and that clear goal that you had from the start.
You've kept referencing the goal. That's just so important. That is.
I think maybe just to add there, I think you mentioned something very important, like inflation and prices going up. I think what budgeting also allows you to do is to figure out what your personal inflation rate is. So the country could be at 9.5, but you as an individual could be at 15%, or you could be at 6%. But without looking at your budget and looking at what you were spending before inflation went up, and now as we are today, you won't understand the impact it's had to your spending. And without understanding that, you can't necessarily allocate accordingly. So I think it's very important, one, to get that visibility of your budget, but two, also to understand how the external factors are actually impacting you at home. Because I think all of us can say, like, yes, prices have gone up. We see that every day when we go buy our food, but do we know how much more we need to spend per month? I don't think people have good clarity on that yet.
I hear you. The director's already screaming in my ear, we're strapped for time and we have to cap it at that particular point. Obviously, there's a lot we could have talked about, but due to the constraints of time, we have to end at this point. Nonetheless, we appreciate you for making time and talking to us, at least priming us on what we need to know, regardless of inflation and high cost of living. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and I had created First Time with Cynthia Wamboy to my extreme left, who's the marketing and community lead at KOA, as well as Delila Kidanu, who's the COO at KOA Waters Formed. Center of our conversation at this hour has been investment and savings. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately, good morning, Kenya, from me and on behalf of the entire team. Asante sana. Till tomorrow, good morning.